everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the Quilter Tone Block 202 amplifier. It's a 200 watt solid state amplifier. It's fully appointed with bass, mid, and treb, along with reverb and a master volume and gain. It also has a limiter on it. We'll get into how all of that sounds in the demo. One thing I will say about the master volume is it basically goes from 200 watts at full volume down to 0 watts off, which makes me wonder if it's not changing the headroom as you turn it down. And we'll get into that in the demo as well. There's several ins and outs across the front. So you've got your input, which is your instrument input, and then you have an effects send and return. We'll check that out in the demo. And then you also have a SIG out or signal out, and that serves a couple different purposes. One is to run into either your DAW or to front a house, and you can set that pre or post your master via this pre-post switch, but you can see on the bottom that it says line and headphone. So if you were to plug headphones into the signal out and move it to headphone, then you could listen to this via headphones. And because this is solid state, it doesn't have to have a cabinet plugged into it. So you could take this pretty much anywhere and not worry about needing to keep some sort of speaker load on it to just listen to it through headphones. Now on the other side, there's another switch. It's the voice switch. It's got 3 modes. The FRFR mode is, I'm assuming, the flat response mode. That's designed for guys that are using modelers. So if you're using a fractal or a Kemper or a Helix, that's the mode you would use at the input, so you could listen to it through a cabinet. We'll check that out briefly in the demo. The full Q mode is basically the fattest way to set it up, and we'll get into how that sounds in the demo. And then the Vent mode is more, or I guess that means vintage, is definitely more chimey and a little bit more scooped in the mids, and we'll certainly get into how that sounds in the demo as well. On the back is a balanced isolated output, which is XLR, and you also have your speaker outs, which are 4 and 8 ohms. I think I'm going to stay focused on the ins and outs on the front of this. I'll let you hear it through a cabinet. I'm going to let you hear the signal out, the direct sound, as well as how it sounds with a modeler. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out the Quilter Tone Block 202. Okay, let's check out some sounds. The way I'm going to start is through my cabinet, because there's a few different ways we can run this. But the way you heard it in the performance was through my Bogner 2x12 cabinet. I've got it in a separate room. It's loaded with Celestion V30s. The mic combination I use is my usual, which is a Royer R121 and a Shure SM57 blended together, straight to the old television set. So I thought where I would start is with basically a clean sound in the vintage mode. Is that what it's called in there? Yeah. Vent Q, I guess, which I guess means vintage. It's going to be a little more chimey, maybe slightly more scooped mids. I've got this all flat right now. Let's just see what it sounds like. Okay, so that's crazy clean. Like it will not break up. Now, what I want to start with is let's leave it where it's at. I want to add the limiter to it. Now, the limiter, as far as I can tell, is pre-gain. So you'll notice it even more when we start cranking gain to get some overdrive tones. But really what the limiter does is it just makes it feel a little bit better. I don't notice like a ton of difference. But even at noon, just turning it up to noon, it feels more squishy. If I crank it all the way up, that's when you do, everything does kind of just hit, you know, a limit. But that's how that works. I like it at around noon. But when I start cranking gain, that's when I need to turn it down because, like I said, it's pre, not post. And we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're in that vent Q mode. Let's just check out treble. Like right now, it's pretty chimey. I'll turn up some treb. Now it's really chimey. Turn it all the way off. I guess if you were going for more of a jazz box, you know, thingy, you can do that. It can get really dark, obviously. Let's do the mids all the way up. Here's the mids all the way off. I like them around noon, maybe bumped just a little. We'll leave the treble just above noon. Bass, here's off. Here's all the way up. It gets pretty huge. And I like it also, you know, sitting around noon. It just depends on what I'm doing. In this mode, I don't feel like I have to do a lot with it. Now, before I get into turning up the gain, let's check out the reverb. So it sounds great. So that's the reverb. The other thing I want to show you really quick is the effects loop. What I've thrown in the effects loop is my Strymon timeline delay. I've got it set just kind of generic. Effects loops, it really works great. I had zero problems with it. I just plugged in my Strymon, pretty much left it the way it was, and it worked great. Okay, so we know all that stuff works really good. Reverb, effects loop. Let's start turning up the gain. I'm going to turn the limiter off to start. Now on this amp, when you start cranking gain, the volume does jump. So you do have to watch your levels on the mic, through your cabinet, however you're running it. So about right there, I'm starting to get kind of a blues breakup. Let's add some more bass, maybe some mids. We'll back the treble. Let's hit it with a back humbucker. Maybe add some treble to that one. Sounds like a cool, just that American kind of vintage crunch sound. Now, that is how, you know, the crunch sound sounds in this this vintage mode. Let's just, without changing anything, I'll turn the reverb back down. Let's just switch to the full Q mode. So right away, what you're getting is it is fatter in the mids. There's less top end. And there's a, you know, you could probably back the bass off now because of the low mids being fatter. Now with that, that's how I was dialing in my, that first solo sound. What did I do? Whatever I did. And what I did to kind of soften it up is, because the limiter is pre and not post, as I started getting the amount of gain I wanted, it was getting, there was a little bit of a top end thing I wasn't as into. So instead of turning the gain back down, I just brought the limiter into it just slightly to soften it up. So I didn't have the harshness it was much more tame, but I still had the gain and character I wanted from having it opened up in the front end. If you add delay to that, it made for a nice solo sound. Now, if you want more gain than that, you're going to have to start using pedals. And the good news with this amp is it's very pedal friendly. I didn't find that, you know, it was a struggle to turn on pedals with it. Now, the pedal that I did use for the second solo tone was my Majestic by Rocket pedals. That's what I used for the solo tone. It's checking my levels. And I think I just added some treble and mid. I can't quite remember what I did, but it was something like. And I did have the reverb on. And I had the delay on, but I had it turned pretty soft. It was down quite a bit. Oh, you know what? It wasn't my Majestic pedal. It was the GTO. That's right. It had more gain. There we go. So that was what I ended up using. That's what it was. But you can hear it obviously takes pedals just fine. What I want to move on to, and I'm going to have to set up for it, is I want you guys to hear the direct signal out. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm back through the magic of TV, and I've got this set up now to run through the signal out. Now I've got the switch set to pre. The reason I would rather have it set to pre is if I was on stage, it would allow me to still adjust my cabinet volume, but not affect what's going to front of house. So that's a really cool way to run it. So that's how it sounds. Let me shut the reverb off. So we're in the vent Q mode. I've got a little bit of limiting happening. If I want some gain, I can go ahead and I'll turn on the Majestic pedal for some crunch. So direct, the pedals still sound really good. You can turn on some delay. That's still in the effects loop. I'll turn it down just a little bit. You can turn on some Reverb, go back to the clean thing. Then move to the full Q mode. The other way I want to show you really quick is with in that FRFR mode, which is really, really flat, and it's designed for guys that want to hear their modelers through a cabinet. So give me a second and I'll set up for that. Okay, so let's check out this FRFR input. What that is designed for is for guys that use modelers. So think, you know, Kemper, Fractal. In my case, I don't own either of those. I don't have a Helix. What I do have, and actually forgot that I had, is Bias Effects, which essentially is a modeler. I've got my X-Tone box, which is basically helping me get my guitar into my portable TV set. So I'm just employing this rig, and I'm running out of it into the FRFR or the FRFR input. I'm still just hitting my Bogner with the same setup, but this will give you an idea of how well that works. I'm going to leave everything flat as far as the EQ goes, and yeah, I'll just let you hear it. So right now, looks like I've got like a British like 800 kind of crunch sound going. So the delay you're hearing is from the TV set. Now, you know, you can still employ the EQ, like if we wanted it to be a little brighter. We can add some lows if we want. But it works really well. Let me see if do I have a clean sound in here? Modifications will be lost without saving. Save current, it's whatever. Oh, here's a clean sound. Especially if I turn my volume back up. Yeah, so this clean sound is, it's like a Tweed Deluxe kind of thing, so it'll break up a little bit. And once again, the reverb you're hearing is from the program itself. So that is the Quilter Tone Block 202. If you've got, I shouldn't say 202, 202. So if you have any other questions, go to the Quilter site and check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It's what helps me to continue doing this. And yeah, we will see you next time.